In other showbiz news, as Poltergeist 3 opens around the country, the memory of Heather O'Rourke continues to make headlines.
Heather O'Rourke's tragic passing at just 12 years old remains one of Hollywood's most heartbreaking mysteries. Best known for her role as Carol Ann in Poltergeist, she captivated audiences with her angelic face and undeniable talent.
Do you want to be an artist when you grow up?
Maybe. Don't want to grow up much.
Her sudden death, reportedly from an intestinal disorder, shocked the world and left lingering questions that have never been fully answered. After decades of speculation, legendary filmmaker Ron Howard has finally broken his silence. What he reveals is deeply unsettling, could change everything we thought we knew about Heather's untimely demise. Heather O'Rourke, the accidental star who captivated Hollywood. Heather O'Rourke's rise to fame was nothing short of a Hollywood fairy tale, sparked by a single moment of fate. In 1980, at just 5 years old, she accompanied her mother, Kathleen, to the MGM studio lot, where her older sister, Tammy, was rehearsing. It was supposed to be an ordinary day, until a legendary filmmaker noticed her. Steven Spielberg, deep in the casting process for Poltergeist, happened to spot Heather sitting in the MGM commissary, quietly enjoying her meal. Something about her stood out: the golden curls, the striking blue eyes, the innocent yet inquisitive presence. She wasn't just another child. There was something special, something magnetic. Spielberg was immediately intrigued. Curious, he struck up a conversation. Heather, unaware she was speaking to one of the most influential directors in Hollywood, answered him politely but didn't seem particularly interested in the exchange. This only fascinated Spielberg more. Unlike many young hopefuls desperate for attention in the industry, Heather's reactions were natural, unforced, exactly what he was looking for. He turned to Kathleen and asked if Heather would audition for Poltergeist. What happened next, however, proved that talent isn't just about being in the right place at the right time. When Heather was first brought in to read lines, the experience overwhelmed her. The bright lights, the unfamiliar process, it was all new. She froze, unable to deliver her lines. But Spielberg, recognizing something deeper in her, didn't give up. Instead, he encouraged her to relax. Then he made a simple request: scream. Not just any scream, one filled with raw fear, as if she were trapped in a real nightmare. Heather took a deep breath and let out a scream so chilling, so piercing, that it sent shivers through the room. It was the moment Spielberg knew. This wasn't just an audition. This was Carol Ann Freeling. The decision was made. Heather was cast in the lead child role in the supernatural thriller, and her life would never be the same. On set, she was nothing short of extraordinary. Despite her young age, she displayed a depth of emotion that far exceeded expectations. She wasn't just playing a role, she became the terrified yet innocent Carol Ann, grounding the film's eerie atmosphere in raw, believable fear. Her famous line, "They're here," delivered with a mix of curiosity and dread, cemented itself in cinematic history, haunting audiences for decades to come. The film's success was immediate. Poltergeist became a cultural phenomenon, catapulting Heather into stardom overnight. Suddenly, she was one of Hollywood's most in-demand child actors, receiving offers for television appearances, commercials, and more films. She reprised her role in Poltergeist 2: The Other Side, and later in Poltergeist 3, proving time and again that she wasn't just a one-time wonder. She was a force to be reckoned with. Yet as her fame soared, so did the weight of expectations. Hollywood had embraced her, but at a cost. The demands of growing career-long hours on set, constant travel, and balancing school with a grueling schedule began to wear on her. While she remained cheerful and professional, those closest to her saw the strain behind her ever-present smile. Few knew that Heather had once been offered a role in E.T. the Extraterrestrial, but had to turn it down due to scheduling conflicts with Poltergeist. Spielberg, who remained a guiding figure in her life, later remarked that Heather had the kind of natural talent that could have carried her into any role she chose. She had an undeniable gift, but Hollywood's relentless machine had a way of taking as much as it gave. Heather O'Rourke's rise to fame was swift, dazzling, and unforgettable. But behind the bright lights and adoring fans, challenges lurked. Challenges that would ultimately prove far greater than anyone could have imagined. What was happening behind the spotlight? Stay with us as we uncover the darker truths of Hollywood's child stardom. Heather O'Rourke. The price of stardom and the burden of fame. Heather O'Rourke's rise to fame seemed like a Hollywood fairy tale, but behind the dazzling lights and red carpets was a story of perseverance, sacrifice, and hidden struggles. Her journey to stardom wasn't paved with luxury. It was built on her family's relentless determination to create a better life. Even when times were tough. Born on December 27, 1975 in San Diego, California, Heather grew up in a household that knew financial hardships all too well. Her parents, Kathleen and Michael O'Rourke, worked tirelessly to support their two daughters, Heather and her older sister, Tammy. Michael, a carpenter, often struggled to find consistent work, while Kathleen took on odd jobs to make ends meet. The family's financial situation was so dire that, at one point, they had to live in a trailer, but through it all, they remained close, sharing an unbreakable bond that kept them going. Despite their challenges, Kathleen and Michael were determined to provide opportunities for their daughters, even if it meant personal sacrifices. When Heather's acting career took off, the family faced an entirely new set of financial hurdles. Acting wasn't just about talent. It required investment, headshots, agents, traveling to auditions. Each step cost money they didn't always have. There were times when Kathleen had to stretch every last dollar just to make sure Heather could attend a casting call. Kathleen, in particular, became the driving force behind Heather's career. She was more than just a mother. She was Heather's biggest supporter, her manager, and the one person who ensured she had everything she needed to succeed. She drove her to auditions, stayed on set, and managed household responsibilities, all while trying to shield Heather from the pressures that came with Hollywood fame. Michael, on the other hand, struggled with the new reality of their daughter's growing stardom. He had always been the family's primary provider, but now it was Heather's acting income that kept them afloat. Balancing his role as a father with the demands of a rising Hollywood career wasn't easy, and at times, tensions arose. But through it all, the O'Rourkes remained united, believing in Heather's potential to change their circumstances. Their sacrifices paid off when Heather landed the role of Carol Ann Freeling in Poltergeist.
Disneyland?
Oh, puke, don't be such an infant.
Okay. What about Dunkin' Donuts?
The film's success was a turning point. Her earnings allowed the family to leave their trailer and move into a more stable home. For the first time, they experienced a level of financial security they had never known. Heather's success didn't just benefit her. It paved the way for her sister Tammy, who also pursued a career in entertainment. But beyond the financial relief, Heather's accomplishments filled her family with pride. She wasn't just a child star. She was a symbol of hope, proof that persistence and talent could transform even the most difficult circumstances. Kathleen often spoke about how proud she was of Heather's ability to remain kind, humble, and hardworking, despite her growing fame. However, the same gentle and obedient nature that made Heather a director's dream would later become one of her greatest burdens. The bright lights of Hollywood came with an unseen cost, and for a child star like Heather, the pressures were immense. Her fame skyrocketed, but so did the expectations placed on her tiny shoulders. The demand for perfection, the relentless filming schedules, and the overwhelming scrutiny of being a public figure at such a young age began to take a toll. Heather's life was no longer just about being a kid. It was about being a professional, meeting deadlines, and delivering flawless performances. But one thing remained unchanged: Heather's love for acting. Despite the sacrifices, pressures, and challenges, she adored being on screen. The glitz, the cameras, the applause. It was what she lived for. But was it truly a dream come true? Or was the reality of fame far more complex? Stay with us as we explore the joys of stardom, Heather's love for acting and fame. Heather O'Rourke, a child star's passion, amidst Hollywood's demands. From the moment Heather O'Rourke first stepped in front of a camera, it was clear that acting wasn't just a career for her, it was a calling. She was born to perform, captivating audiences and industry insiders alike with her natural charm, infectious energy, and effortless talent. Even as a child, long before Hollywood came knocking, Heather would put on little shows for her family.
Ready? Where's Robbie?
Says he's coming. Kiss Katrina too.
Entertaining them with playful skits and dramatic performances. Her mother recalled how she would transform ordinary moments into something magical, delighting everyone around her. Heather's love for acting only grew stronger when she landed her first big role. Unlike many young actors who struggle with the pressures of the industry, she embraced every aspect of the filmmaking process. She found joy in the creative collaboration, bonding closely with her co-stars, and treating every set as if it were a second home. Insiders remember the way her eyes would light up when she was in front of the camera, fully immersed in her craft. Whether it was a heartwarming scene or a tense, fear-filled moment in Poltergeist, she gave her all, proving that she wasn't just another child star. She was something special. Beyond the hard work and dedication, fame brought Heather a level of happiness that most children could only dream of. She truly cherished the experiences of walking red carpets, attending premieres, and receiving adoration from fans around the world. She would read fan letters with excitement, treasuring the heartfelt messages and drawings sent to her. To her, acting wasn't just about being on screen. It was about making a connection with people and touching lives through the roles she played. But Heather was still a child, and like any young performer, there were moments when she felt the weight of her growing success. While she loved acting, the demanding schedule sometimes left her exhausted. There were days when she would confide in her mother, wondering if this was the right path for her. But these moments of doubt never lasted long. She always found her way back to the love she had for storytelling, fueled by the pride she felt after completing a difficult scene or earning praise from a director. Acting helped her grow, shaping her into someone far wiser and more mature than her years. One of the greatest joys of her career was the opportunity to travel. Shooting on location gave her the chance to see places she had only dreamed of, turning work trips into unforgettable adventures. Whether it was exploring a new city, spending time in makeup and costume, or simply playing with animals on set, Heather found excitement in every part of the experience. Those who knew her said she had a rare ability to find happiness in even the smallest moments, spreading her joy to those around her. But despite the bright lights and adoring fans, something darker loomed behind the scenes. A growing burden was slowly making itself known, one that no amount of fame or talent could keep at bay. What happened when Hollywood's golden girl found herself battling something far more terrifying than any role she had ever played? Heather O'Rourke, a silent battle, hidden behind the spotlight. Heather O'Rourke's battle with illness began long before anyone realized how serious it truly was. For months, subtle signs hinted that something was wrong, yet no one, neither her family nor her doctors, could pinpoint the real cause. At first, her symptoms seemed minor: occasional stomach pain, nausea, and bloating. They were easy to dismiss, often brushed off as a simple stomach bug or a stress reaction. But as time went on, these discomforts became more frequent and more intense. Friends and colleagues on set started noticing small changes in Heather. She wasn't quite as energetic as before. Sometimes she looked pale, a little more tired, her usual spark slightly dimmed. But Heather, ever the professional, pushed through. She was determined to keep going, to not let anything stand in the way of her love for acting. Even on her worst days, she still lit up the screen, delivering performances that captivated audiences. Behind the scenes, though, her condition was worsening. The stomach pains grew sharper. The exhaustion became more overwhelming. She found it harder to eat, and even when she did, the discomfort didn't go away. Her parents grew concerned and sought medical advice, but the answers they received were not the right ones. Doctors initially diagnosed her with Crohn's disease, a condition that, while serious, was treatable. With a prescribed treatment plan in place, they hoped Heather would soon feel better. But she didn't. The treatments didn't work, because the diagnosis was wrong. The true cause of Heather's suffering remained hidden, a congenital intestinal abnormality that had gone undetected her entire life. Despite her deteriorating health, Heather refused to let it show. She remained dedicated to her career, determined not to let her struggles define her. On set, she smiled, laughed, and delivered each line with the same passion she always had. Even when she needed extra breaks or moments to rest, she never complained. But those closest to her saw the change. There were moments when the weight of it all became too much, when she seemed distant, lost in thought. The pressure of balancing fame with her growing health issues and the unspoken responsibility she felt toward her family began taking an emotional toll. Her family did everything they could to support her, but they too faced their struggles. They had endured financial hardships in the past, and Heather's rising career had given them hope for a more stable future. But now, as her condition worsened, they found themselves caught in an impossible position, juggling their daughter's well-being with the demands of her career. They hoped things would improve, that the treatments would eventually take effect, and that Heather would return to full health. Yet beneath it all, time was running out. The illness that had quietly taken hold of her young body was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. And then came the tragic day, the shocking death of Heather O'Rourke. But what exactly happened in those final hours? And could it have been prevented? Stay with us as we uncover the heartbreaking final chapter of her story. The tragic mystery of Heather O'Rourke, a life cut, short too soon. February 1st, 1988, is a date forever etched in the memories of those who knew and loved young Hollywood star Heather O'Rourke. That morning began like any other, but for Heather, something felt wrong. She woke up complaining of unbearable stomach pain, her tiny frame weakened by relentless nausea and vomiting. Her mother, Kathleen, immediately sensed the urgency. This wasn't just another flare-up of what doctors had dismissed as a chronic condition. As Heather's condition spiraled downward at an alarming rate, she went into shock. Kathleen, panicked and desperate, called 911. Paramedics arrived swiftly, their faces growing tense as they assessed the young girl's failing state. Heather was rushed to Children's Hospital in San Diego, where chaos unfolded in the emergency room. Doctors fought against time, trying to stabilize her unresponsive body. Then came a horrifying revelation. Heather's illness was far worse than anyone had imagined. Medical staff discovered a congenital intestinal obstruction that had gone undiagnosed for years. The blockage had triggered a severe infection, sending her body into septic shock. With no time to waste, Heather was prepped for emergency surgery. As her family paced anxiously in the hospital hallways, the weight of uncertainty bore down on them. Kathleen clutched Heather's favorite stuffed animal, whispering prayers for a miracle. Time seemed frozen, each passing second an unbearable torment. Inside the operating room, doctors did everything they could to save her, but fate had other plans. Heather's young heart gave out during the procedure. At 2:43 p.m., the world lost a bright and promising talent. The announcement of Heather's death sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. At just 12 years old, she had already captured the hearts of millions with her unforgettable performances. News reports confirmed that she had died of an intestinal disorder, but the reality was far more painful. The tragic misdiagnosis of Crohn's disease had masked the true severity of her condition. The treatment she had been receiving was for an illness she never had, while the real threat inside her remained undetected. Her devastated family was left to grapple with a haunting question. Could Heather's death have been prevented? In the weeks that followed, her mother filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the hospital and medical group responsible for her treatment. The case not only highlighted medical failures, but also exposed deeper issues within the healthcare system. How could a condition so serious go unnoticed in a child? And how many other young lives were at risk due to misdiagnoses? As the world mourned, Heather's colleagues and fans struggled to accept her devastating loss. Hollywood paid tribute to the young actress, with co-stars and directors remembering her as a gifted performer who brought light to every set she graced. Vigils were held, letters poured in, and the media covered every aspect of her tragic passing. But amidst the outpouring of grief, unsettling rumors began to circulate. Some believed there was more to Heather's death than what had been reported. Whispers suggested that something or someone else was involved. Could there be a darker truth lurking behind this tragedy? And then, in a shocking twist, someone close to Heather finally decided to break their silence. Ron Howard finally speaks up. Hollywood's dark secret. Ron Howard's chilling confession about Heather O'Rourke. Years after the tragic and untimely passing of Heather O'Rourke, Hollywood veteran Ron Howard finally opened up in a rare and deeply emotional interview. Known for his measured and thoughtful words, Howard's remarks added a new and unexpected layer to the long-standing conversation surrounding Heather's death. His statements sent shockwaves through the industry, shedding light on the immense pressure placed on child actors and the hidden struggles they face. She was overworked, Howard admitted solemnly. I think about Heather often. She was an incredible talent, but the demands on her were just too much for someone so young. His words carried weight, not just because of his stature in the industry, but because they hinted at something darker. While Howard carefully avoided naming names, his comments left many wondering. Who was responsible for pushing Heather beyond her limits? Was it her directors, the producers, or was the entire system to blame? What made his remarks even more chilling was a moment in the interview when he appeared to let something slip, something that sent fans into a frenzy. He said, almost under his breath, "I killed her." The room fell silent. The interviewer, clearly caught off guard, pressed him to explain, but Howard refused to elaborate. Instead, he simply shook his head and moved on, leaving a cloud of mystery hanging over his words. Was it just a figure of speech? Or was he alluding to something deeper, something Hollywood had worked hard to keep buried? Howard's words reignited long-standing discussions about the treatment of child stars, particularly in the 1980s, a time when protections for young actors were minimal. Back then, the industry wasn't built to protect kids, he continued. They worked long hours, juggled school, and carried responsibilities far beyond what any child should have to handle. And Heather, well, she carried more than most. Insiders have since revealed that Heather's work schedule was grueling, even for a seasoned adult actor, with back-to-back filming commitments, promotional appearances, and expectations to maintain a flawless public image. The weight on her young shoulders was unbearable. Yet, despite her deteriorating health, she kept pushing forward, determined to meet every demand placed on her. But at what cost? Howard's comments sparked a wave of scrutiny. Was Heather's declining health ignored in favor of keeping production schedules on track? Were there signs that were brushed aside? Signs that, had they been taken seriously, could have saved her life? Some pointed fingers at those closest to her career, questioning whether they had done enough to protect her. Others argued that those in charge had no way of knowing just how sick she was. But one thing became clear: Heather O'Rourke was not just a victim of a misdiagnosed illness. She was also a casualty of Hollywood's relentless machine. Howard's revelation sparked intense debate across Hollywood and among fans. Some defended the directors and producers involved in Heather's career, insisting that they had no ill intentions and were simply helping her reach her full potential. Others saw Howard's words as a veiled accusation, an unspoken condemnation of an industry that had failed a young girl who gave it everything. And then, some believed Howard knew more than he was letting on. His strange remark, "I killed her," refused to fade from public discussion. Was it guilt, regret, or was he hinting at something far more sinister? As tributes to Heather continued to pour in, so did the unanswered questions. Fans revisited old interviews, dissected behind-the-scenes footage, and searched for any clue that might reveal what happened to the young star. Her legacy, once defined by her role in Poltergeist, had now become entangled in a web of speculation, mystery, and unsettling whispers. What are your thoughts on Heather's story? Do you think her demanding schedule played a role in her tragic passing? Share your opinions in the comments below.